Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm in the old streets of Saint-Gilles-Croix-de-Vie. And this is where a lot of the beautiful old homes are, some that date back to the 16th and 17th centuries. So today I thought I would take you on a little tour of the town so you could better understand the history of Saint-Gilles-Croix-de-Vie. All right, so this is Charlie.
Hello.
He's from the tourist board and he's going to show us some really interesting things about the history of this neighborhood.
One of the things that's fascinating about this part of town are the narrow streets. So this was all built before there were cars. So really the best way to get around this area is on a bike.
So Charlie, what are these little boats that I see all over town with the numbers?
So it's Caravel. It was the typical maritime boat of Saint-Gilles at the time where the port of Saint-Gilles was one of the most important maritime ports of the Atlantic coast.
So all of these boats you see around town will have numbers and they correspond to a map. And that will tell you a lot of interesting points about the shipping history.
So these were the boats that were bringing in all of the trade from kind of all over the world?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay, great. And so many of the houses that we see on this part of town were from that period?
Yes.
So Saint-Gilles-Croix-de-Vie is actually two towns, Saint-Gilles and Croix-de-Vie. It's connected by a bridge which is separated by a river. The Saint-Gilles side is known for its beautiful architecture and lovely homes because these were the homes of the merchant class that were making all the money from all of the shipping. Charlie was explaining that even the stone walls were connected to the shipping. So the stone was used as ballast in the bottom of a ship to stabilize the ship. So when it had a lot of goods, it didn't need the stone. But if it was a ship that was empty, returning from a voyage and needed stabilization, it would have these stones. And they put them to use in all of these stone walls. These stone walls date back to the 1600s. As the shipping industry grew and the merchants became more successful, they were looking for immigrant labor. At this time, the Moors were being driven out of Spain and came to Saint-Gilles-Croix-de-Vie looking for work. The interesting part about this is they had the knowledge of sardine fishing because they knew how to fish with nets as opposed to poles and line. They taught the people of Saint-Gilles-Croix-de-Vie how to catch sardines, and a whole industry was born, one that would soon become even more successful than the shipping industry.
But what's nice now is like a lot of these little streets have little restaurants in them. I always wondered, are there no cars allowed on these streets?
You can take you can park your car in this place.
I see.
But
see, now there's this pole. You can't drive.
But some little narrow streets are not open for cars.
For cars, which is what makes it so charming.
Yes.
I love this little shop. I come in here a lot.
Because you have a lot of pedestrian streets.
Yeah, which is so great. This is a very cute restaurant too. Fritz, it has delicious fish from what I remember.
Exactly.
One of my favorite old homes in this neighborhood is this one that sits on the corner. Philippe and I always walk by it and marvel at how beautiful it is. It dates back to the 1700s. And while we were out there admiring it, typical small town, the owners came out and invited us inside. So they said I could show the bottom floor because this is something that they actually rent out as an Airbnb. So if you're looking to come to Saint-Gilles, I highly would recommend this Airbnb. It couldn't be in a better neighborhood. And it's so beautiful and well done too. I checked it out on Airbnb and it also has lots of great reviews. I'll leave you a link in the description. The owner spent a lot of time remodeling it, and it has two really good-sized bedrooms. The ceilings are very high, so it feels really spacious. And there's even an outdoor space that has a barbecue and a deck and a little seating area. I think if you came to Saint-Gilles and you were looking for something in town that's close to the beach, just about 10 minutes away, you would be perfectly cozy here. And right outside your door is all of the action. You're right in town, which makes it such a convenient spot. It's also nice seeing the old buildings being used for restaurants or shops. I think it just helps preserve the character of the town and helps us stay connected to its past. With all the influx of immigrant labor, there wasn't room on the Saint-Gilles side to house all of these immigrants. So they developed the other side of the river, the Croix-de-Vie side, and this is where the fishermen live. One of my favorite things on this side of town is the church. It dates back to the late 1800s, and this is the square that is the market square on market days. I just love this church because I think it shows an enormous amount of empathy. This is something that's very common that you see in a lot of seaside towns here in France, and that is a boat that is suspended from the ceiling. In these seaside towns, when fishing was the main occupation, there would be a lot of men who would have lost their lives at sea. And I can only imagine how much comfort these boats would have provided to the women and children that were left behind sitting in the church, wondering about their loved ones. There is something so sweet and touching about the sentiment of a boat being lifted up to the heavens that I think must have provided a lot of comfort to those families. I also really love the fishing nets that also are suspended from the ceiling. I think it shows so much thoughtfulness and empathy. The first time I saw it, I was so touched by it, I got a little bit choked up. And every time now I'm in France in a seaside village and I see a church, I always love to go inside and see if I see a boat suspended from the ceiling. On the Croix-de-Vie side, you definitely can see the difference in architecture. These homes were one-story, whitewashed, with blue or gray shutters.
Like the little house in Mexico.
It is. It
Yes.
looks like.
Lost in the desert with the saloon. And
Yeah.
your house.
It does. They look like little haciendas.
You definitely can see the Spanish influence on this side
I
of town.
wondered that because this part always has the tile roofs,
Yes.
which you don't see over on the Saint-Gilles part.
No.
No.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah.
They are very little houses.
Yes, and sometimes the doors are very small.
Yes.
I noticed they must have been very small.
At this time, yes, they were,
This time, yeah.
quite small.
I think you get more breeze here. I
Yes.
feel like it's a little bit. Is it closer to the water
Yes,
than Saint-Gilles?
it's more windy.
It's more windy.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
because
fresher.
It's more open, more large, more larger.
Yeah. He looks so far away. Are you lost? Aww.
Charlie shared an interesting story about the color of these shutters.
The doors and the shutter were painted with fishing boat paint.
With fishing boat paint.
So
Now,
if you had some paint left, you will paint your doors and shutters with this.
was that just to protect them because with the rain it wouldn't be, it would protect the shutters, or was it more
No,
just because they had it?
Exactly.
It was just because they had it. Which is interesting because sometimes the color does feel like the colors of the boats.
Yes, and this is why.
It's practically a direct match. Walking through this neighborhood, you definitely get the sense that this must have been a tight-knit community. Many of these homes were built so close together because of the wind. This was the windy side of town, and I can just imagine what it must have been like in the winter.
For as long as we've been coming here, I have always been fascinated by the Maison du Pecheur, which is an old little fisherman's cottage here on the Croix-de-Vie side of Saint-Gilles-Croix-de-Vie.
So Charlie led the way, and we just went down more tiny streets and little back alleys. This area of Croix-de-Vie is known as the Moroccan Quarter because a lot of the early immigrants who came were also from Morocco.
Ah, here we go.
Charlie knows all the shortcuts, and lo and behold, we ended up right in front of La Maison du Pecheur, the fisherman's house. I have always passed this little house and wondered what was inside. So I'm so glad I got the opportunity to bring you guys along. We'll go check it out.
Now, the thing that's super interesting about this house is the fact that it had one family, but 11 children. 11 children. But then the tour guide just informed us that that was actually a little bit less. The medium amount of children on this street would have been 14. Yikes.
Donc les 9 filles et les parents vont coucher dans cette pièce.
Our tour guide explained that the parents and the daughters would have slept in this room, and the brothers would have slept in the kitchen. That this was not a living room, but was really just used for sleeping.
Porte ne rentre que le docteur, monsieur le curé, et la laitière qui vous dépose le lait le matin en bas.
And the front door was only used for the doctor, the priest, and the man who delivered the milk. All the other activity was happening out the back door.
C'est un lit où on couche 4 filles ensemble.
This bed would have slept 4 girls together in one bed. And the stick that's on the bed wasn't used for some sort of corporal punishment. That was actually to make the bed more comfortable, because the beds at this time were stuffed with a type of hay. So if you needed to fluff it up before you went to bed, you would whack the stick on the bed, and that would give it a fluffing. I found it interesting that even though these men were fishermen or sailors, a lot of them did not know how to swim. So oftentimes there were accidents at sea where men would lose their lives, and these women were left with 11 or 14 children to raise.
Quiche-note. On s'appelle ça un quiche-note.
Kiss me not. Surtout ne m'embrassez pas.
This hat was called a kiss-me-not, and it was a way for the women to avoid getting kisses, I guess unwanted kisses, maybe from strangers, maybe from people they were married to. I don't really know. But what's interesting about it is it also protected against the wind, because this was such a windy part of France, especially in the winter near the sea, and the back of it was also there to protect against the sun. So if they were out working somewhere, the back of it would protect their neck.
Et ça, c'est une coiffe de Saint-Gilles-Croix-de-Vie.
Ah, très
C'est pas la même chose. C'est pas la même chose.
C'était en sorte de chapeau ou c'était juste pour faire le
Ah
respect?
non, non, c'est déjà quelque chose de joli.
This was something meant to be more for decoration. So this was something that women would have worn to mass or for taking a Sunday walk or for just dressing up for a special occasion. While the men were out fishing, it was the women who were actually working in the cannery, canning the sardines. And these were outfits that would have been worn in the cannery. The little black, what looks like a shawl, was called a perine. And it was something that would allow them to work, to have their hands free, but also keep their shoulders warm. Over to the left, that fancy white outfit, that would have been worn by the boss.
C'est plus joli, c'est plus sophistiqué.
On montre son pouvoir. On ne le dit pas. On
Oui,
le
on montre.
On montre.
This was interesting. She said, we show our power. We don't tell our power. So being dressed up like that automatically said, look who's in charge. The petticoats for the girls were designed to grow with them. So as you can see, there are many pleats in this petticoat. So each time that the girl would grow a few inches taller, they would extend the petticoat a little bit longer. It's even meant to be adjustable up at the waist as well. So as she got bigger, the petticoat could be let out. And then, of course, my favorite room in the house, the kitchen. I was very curious to see how the kitchen would have functioned at this time period. I was surprised at how small the table was for such a big family. But the tour guide explained that at this time, people ate at different times. The men would go off early in the morning to go fishing. The women would be left behind. They would then go to the cannery. So everybody was eating at different times.
Ok.
Ça, quand elles ont eu des cuisinières, les maisons...
They had a little stove, and the stove, in addition to the fireplace, was also used to heat the house because it would become really hot, and then the steam would go up through the pipe and heat the home. There was a reservoir of water that would also be kept hot as the stove was heating, and this could be used to have one's coffee. So the water would heat and boil, and down at the bottom was a little faucet where you could fill that pail with some hot water and pour it into the coffee pot.
Et vous allez la mettre avec où il y a un petit peu de café, vous allez la mettre dedans.
C'est très pratique.
C'est ingénieux, oui.
And on the sideboard was an example of one of the fishing boats, complete with the fishing nets. And Nicole, the tour guide, had an interesting story to add to the blue color of the boat.
Ça rappelle la mer. Et puis la Vierge, elle avait une cape bleue, donc on pouvait prier avant de partir.
She explained that the blue did remind them of the sea, and a lot of times that's why boats were painted that color, but it was also because it reminded them of the Cape of the Virgin Mary, who they would pray to every time they would go out to sea. There was a very efficient-looking sink with some beautiful pottery pieces, and I was curious what that big wooden ladle was for.
Ceci, c'est pour économiser l'eau. Il n'y a pas d'eau dans les maisons.
She explained it was to conserve water because there was no water or electricity in this house. So you'd have to go to the well, which was located by the church, to get water. So if someone was thirsty, they would take this little wooden ladle, put it in the bucket to grab some water, take it over to the table, and then out would come the water through this little spout. Out the back door is where most of the activity would happen for the neighborhood. They were very close to their neighbors. Just on the other side of that wall would have been the other house. And can you imagine the 11 children of this house and maybe another 11 children or 14 children next door? The activity that this little courtyard would have seen? Large pot was for doing laundry, but not exclusively. Nicole explained it also was used for boiling fish and potatoes, so it was really multi-purpose. And just next door, you can see how close the neighbor was. And this was really the benefit when working and living in these kinds of conditions. The community was very important. Today, it is a museum, and it's super interesting to go inside because you can see all different kinds of things that have to do with life of a fisherman. There's some beautiful old photographs that show you what life must have been like at this time, not only for the fishermen, but the people working in the cannery as well. There's some wonderful old photos of the town, and it's just fun to see all of these places that I go today and see what it looked like back then. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed my visit to La Maison du Pecheur. It definitely gave me a greater understanding and appreciation for what life must have been like for these early fishermen.
Merci et bon voyage. Portez-vous bien. Now, to fully appreciate the sardine canning business, we have to go in and have a little tasting.
And you can do that here at the Atelier de Sardine. It's a wonderful boutique and a tasting spot, and there's also a little museum inside. But before we head in, I have to show you something really cute. Two adorable little donkeys. And the donkeys are here because it's more environmentally friendly to have them keep the field clean and graze upon it than to have to mow it. I thought that was very interesting. And it's something that you see in other parts of Saint-Gilles-Croix-de-Vie as well, like where they pick up the trash in the town. They have a horse and buggy that does that. La Perle des Dieux is the company that owns the atelier, and there are 3 different boutiques around town. This one is interesting because it's one of the largest, and it also has the little museum. The boutique is really amazing. There are all different types of products made with sardines, as well as the local salt or local seafood. One thing that I thought was interesting is that the sardines change from year to year, much like wine, where there can be good years and really great years. And in the back of the store is where they have the reserve of some of the best years. And you can read about them and find out why it was some of the best years. It could be because the water was warm, the plankton was plentiful, there were a lot of sunny days. It just really depends from year to year, and they all have a different taste because of it.
Oui, okay, d'accord.
I was invited to taste some, so I thought I would take her up on the invitation.
Alors là, vous avez de la sardine au citron frais.
The first one was a sardine that had been packed in fresh lemon.
On peut conserver très longtemps en fait.
She was explaining that the sardines are packed in olive oil and they can stay for a very long time in those cans, up to 10 years. In fact, sometimes the longer they stay in the can, the more delicious they are.
All right, I'm going to try this one. Here we go. 2018, giving it a try. Let's see. It's so interesting how different they all are. This one's very light.
Do you have a butter taste?
Yes, I do. It does taste like a buttery taste. Is that just because of the sardines and the warm water?
It's because of the fat in the fish and with olive oil.
With the olive oil?
Yes.
What makes the fatty fish? Is it the hot water that they're in, the warm water?
No, it's the plankton.
It's the plankton.
Plankton, yes.
Okay, yes. Okay, good. Delicious. Yes, it does have a buttery taste.
After the sardine sampling, I then went in to see the little museum, which is really wonderfully done, and you can learn more about the sardine industry as well as the women and how they factored into the canning business. It was great to see some of these archival photos, and you can see what life must have been like in these early canneries. The sardine industry has been such an important component to the success of the city that in 1991 they established the Brotherhood of the Sardine. Look at these outfits, aren't they fabulous? I just love them. And this is a group that will celebrate the Sardine Festival every year. It happens in the summer. I just think it's such a wonderful thing to continue the tradition.
So we've been invited to somebody's house for dinner on Thursday night, and I wanted to bring a little hostess gift. These are all the sort of summer flavors. You have the orange, you have the lemon, there's some pesto. I thought that would be nice. And then another thing I thought would be fun is just to do a collection of the reserve of all the best years. So you can buy that too here. So I'm gonna get this one. I thought this would be fun. These are 4 of their best years in a little sardine pack. And it really makes a cute gift. One of the things I love in France is that they always make little gift packages. So if you ask things to be gift wrapped, they put it in a little package with bows. C'est très joli, merci.
Merci.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this year's vlog series. I think we got to see some pretty interesting spots, meet some interesting people. I, for one, really enjoyed having some first-time experiences, like staying up long enough to catch the fireworks on the 14 Juillet. We spent quality time getting to know some new friends in town, as well as reconnecting with some of our old and dearest friends. Spent some quality family time and experienced some amazing things together, which, of course, were not without its adventures. And best of all, made memories with my girls that will last a lifetime. If you guys want to get caught up on all the adventures, I'll leave you the playlist below. But before I head back to LA, one final tip from Paris. If you need a break from the city, head to the Luxembourg Gardens, but make sure you pick the right garden chair because there is a difference between the two.
You could pick this one. This is a lovely chair. But really, my favorite chair to get is this one. The one that
not moving.
the one that reclines. This is the chair to get.
I'm not moving.
But first you have to extract the local.
Or ask him very nicely to get you one because they are heavy.
This is the life.
See you back in LA.